Welcome to Transformative Principal, where I help you stop putting out fires and start leading. I am your host, Jethro Jones. You can follow me on Twitter at Jethro Jones. I mentioned in episode 462 that I'm doing a new training program called How to Be a Transformative Principal. It's for those who are in their first 3 years of being a principal, or assistant principals, or aspiring principals who want to level up their game right now. Join me at jethrojones.com/how2be. How to be. We'll see you there. That's jethrojones.com/how2be. Welcome to Transformative Principal. This is episode 475, and I'm honored to have my good friend, Dr. Bill Ziegler, on the program today. Bill, welcome to Transformative Principal.
Jethro, it's so good to be on Transformative Principal. I just love what you do with this podcast and your work with your mastermind. So thanks for having me.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure. You've been one of my friends for a long time, and we met virtually first, and then we got to meet in person, and I'm excited for the day when we can meet in person again, because you are always an inspiration. So I want to talk first. You have a podcast. I'd like you to share a little bit about that before we get going, because people need to be listening to it. The great thing is it's short, sweet, and to the point. So tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, Lead the Way EDU is a podcast for ed leaders by ed leaders in 5 minutes or less. It's really just a quick, practical way for leaders to get some good tips and information to really inspire them, empower them, and to uplift them in the work that they do. So Lead the Way EDU by Dr. Bill Ziegler. Check it out wherever you listen to your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent. And like I mentioned, the thing that's great about it is that it is short and sweet and to the point. And so you do longer interviews, but then you break them up into just 5 minutes, which makes it accessible for anybody who's looking for some insights about leadership. So one of the things I want to talk to you about today is how do we weather the storms that are happening as principals? Because those storms happen all too often. How do we weather them?
Yeah, Jethro, I could tell you, I have been a principal now for, I think, like 24 years. And this is by far the most challenging year I have experienced in my tenure as a principal. And I think some of the ways that we weather the storms and stay strong during the storms is, number one, is to take care of ourselves. And what I mean about that is really just carving out time for yourself, like carving out time to make sure you're getting in your workout, you're staying physically fit, that you're getting plenty of sleep. Here's the other one. And these are two hard ones I'm going to introduce to you. And the first one is to take your lunch every single day. So I hear principals, it's almost like a badge of honor to say, I never get to eat. I don't even get to eat until the end of the day. Well, shame on you, because This is what I think. I think we're healthier, Jethro, when we are fueling our bodies and taking that downtime, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes. Go in your office, close the door, find a quiet space, eat your lunch, take some time to just re-energize. Really important. I think the second one is the other badge of honor that I hear from a lot of principals is I never use all my vacation days. I got them all at the end of the year. I don't even know what to do with them. You know what? Start using those vacation days. Use them to invest in you or your family, uplifting you, and really just, I like to think of it as almost filling your soul and lifting your spirits as a person. The work that we do as principals is so tiring and stressful. And I think it's important that we protect ourselves and really work to create boundaries. And those boundaries allow us to thrive in the storms. And I can tell you, just here's the other thing. I think the next piece, so number one is to really take care of yourself. Number two is not to take it personally. So now I'm finding that people, Jethro, and I'm sure you're finding this in your work too, people they're on edge and they're saying things that are inappropriate and they're there's a lot of heated debate in schools right now. And I'll give you this example. Say, the mass debate's a big one. And we have a person that would, call masking child abuse, which I think is preposterous and really is, shameful. And because I think what that does is it devalues actual abuse, right?
Yeah.
But this person took a picture of me and two other administrators and posted it on Facebook and said, child abusers, know your enemies, and please share their names and tag them. And because I don't know if you're familiar with the term doxing, but this individual wanted to dox us and put our information out there, right?
Wow.
And yeah, just crazy. These are the crazy times we're living in. So I think staying strong in the storm right now, number one, about protecting yourself and getting time to rest, enjoy time with your family and friends, really protecting that lunchtime during the day, whether it's 5 minutes, 30 minutes or whatever. And then really also using your vacation days and using them strategically to restore yourself and to replenish yourself. So
I want to address a couple of those things. First, I want to talk about the self-care. It's so important and something that we don't do enough of. And those badges of honor of skipping lunch and not using vacation days is really just a recipe for burnout, is all that is. And so one of the things that I did is once a week, I would have my wife have lunch with me at school as a way to ensure that, one, I had lunch, and two, to show her some respect and love. And it wasn't always easy to get away from school, though we did do that sometimes also. But it was always manageable to have her come and have lunch with me. And almost anything that goes on can wait for that 30 minutes for you to eat your lunch. I mean, there are emergencies, but there's not that many emergencies. And it's a lot easier to say I'm not available if you're in there with your spouse or partner or whatever it is. I mean, just, bring in somebody else and have that lunch with them. And it's a little thing, but it pays big dividends. The other thing that does is it signals to other people that they need to take care of themselves as well, and that they shouldn't think that they have to be worked really, really hard all the time. For example, we give homework in schools. I am of the opinion that homework is unethical for schools to give, because we should not be telling families how to use their time at home. And if you think about that by extension, what if the principal told teachers, you need to go home and do an extra bit of work at home? No teacher would be okay with that. Teachers are already working way more than they should, way more than the contract time, going above and beyond, which is great. But none of them would like it if we told them they had to go home and do even more work. And so why do we think that it's okay for us to do that to kids? And more importantly, why do we think it's okay to tell families this is how you should spend your time at home? I just don't think that that's okay. And that extends to that idea of self-care, that it's not just about burning yourself out so that you can say that you did a good job, but it's about using your time wisely. And I loved what you said about investing in yourself with your vacation days. That can be rejuvenation, relaxation, or what I did several times is I used my vacation days to go present at conferences, because I loved presenting at conferences. And that was rejuvenating to go do that. And any of those things it doesn't matter what you're using it for, take advantage and use it, because it's there to help you have balance and take care of yourself in your life.
I can't agree with you more. And I think self-care needs to be at the forefront of principles. And I think what happens is we live a selfless life. We just give away. We are service-oriented people that are about others and not us. And I think sometimes what that causes is a complete depletion of our energy levels and our fuel to be able to move forward. And, there's no shame in taking a sick day for a mental health recovery day. There's no shame in protecting that 30-minute lunchtime and making sure you take it while you're reading a book or a devotional, or like you said, maybe you're bringing a friend or a spouse in, or on the phone with someone, just connecting. I think we really need to find ways during these storms to really protect ourselves from the storm. You think about it. I would never want our teachers to be working 24/7 without any breaks or enjoying life. And that's why I think as principals, we need to find what we love outside of school and do it more. So I love spending time with my family. and I love fishing. So I try to do as much as I can of those two things outside of school. But I think also principals are workaholics by nature and they're perfectionists. Here's the other thing I would like to let principals know. The work is always going to be there. You're never going to finish it, right?
John Catt Educational supports high-quality teaching and learning by providing publications that are research-based, practical, and focused on the key topics proven essential in today's and tomorrow's schools. The latest John Catt publications include a book whose bold, transformative ideas amaze and infuriate people around the world, according to one reviewer, a title from global leaders in curriculum planning, practice, and retrieval, one book that says stop talking and start doing with regard to teacher well-being, and much more. These books, used by educators of all roles across North America and worldwide, amplify fresh, engaging voices with practical strategies to create transformative change. Learn more in our show notes at jethrojones.com/podcast.
So I used to be, when I was a young principal, you probably did this too, Jethro, like I wouldn't leave until the project was done. Well, I was leaving at like 6 o'clock at night. So I just started saying to myself, listen, you know what? I'm going to end it. I'm going to leave at a reasonable time and it'll be there. It can wait for me tomorrow. Why? Because my wife and my kids are more important than the project I'm working on. Just something, I think it comes along with what you said, but I think that other piece, so in addition to the self-care, is really that piece around just not taking things personally, not letting them stick to us. Because just like we are workaholics that are selfless, we also take things very personally. We're sensitive. That's what makes us great principals, right? Mm-hmm. Is that we're sensitive. But what happens there, it sticks to us. And I almost picture it as, imagine throughout the day, you just get Post-it notes all over you of things that are, maybe mean spirit or just nasty or just busyness. They may be good intended, but they stick all over you and you carry them home and you just keep doing this negative self-talk. And the negative self-talk can really be our greatest enemy in this storm. It's not the crazy, outrageous parent. It's not the media. It's not something with your school board or your administration. Sometimes our greatest enemy is ourselves. As we're driving home going, I'm never going to get this right. I'm just such a failure. And you know what we need to do? We need to start turning on your podcast and other podcasts. And we need to listening to music and doing what we need to restore our souls while we're driving home rather than that negative self-talk.
Yeah. Negative self-talk will just kill you. You're talking about the priorities and putting our family first and leaving work on time. Just last week, I had a really smart principal say to me, for most of my career, I said my family comes first as long as the school doesn't come before it. And really, that's, the way a lot of people live. We talk about family comes first, but when it comes right down to it, we stay at work late. We miss important activities, daily dinner with our family. That kind of stuff just doesn't fly in the long term. Like you, when I was younger, I thought I needed to stay until everything was completely accomplished. Later, I learned that, guess what? It'll be there tomorrow. And I'm also a cog in a machine. So even if this thing doesn't get finished, the thing's just going to keep on rolling. It's just going to keep on happening. And it's okay. It's not the end of the world. And it doesn't have to be the worst thing for me to not finish something perfectly the first time I try it.
Yeah, you bring up such a great point too about, just really protecting time with our family. So I think of it this way. My kids, right? My son and daughter only get one shot of me being their dad. And I hear principals talking about they don't get their own kids things because they're cheering on their students. This should never happen. I intentionally selected a school close to my house so I could go over to the game and then come back over to see my kids' game and then go back over to the school, right? I made it a priority. And I think, when I look back on my kids' high school career and college career, I was thankful that I was there for as many events. And let me say, here's the other thing. The most important thing of your day as a principal, I'm going to share it with you right now. It's the dinner time with your family. Without a doubt, that's more important than the principal's office, having board meetings, talking to your superintendent, sitting down with your family, your kids, your spouse, your friends, whoever it is, and enjoying dinner together, even if it's only for 20 minutes, and talking about your day and just sharing love with one another. It refuels us and it gets us back, because we work in a crazy, crazy world, and we need that to re-energize ourselves.
Yeah, and we need that to re-energize ourselves, but we also need it to re-energize those that we live with, those that we love, and they need us just as much as we need them. And we don't have to be perfect in that role either, lest somebody think that that's what we're saying. We just need to be the best that we can in that moment. And sometimes that's not very good, to be honest. Sometimes I'm not a very good dad. Sometimes I'm too stressed about other things. And unfortunately, my kids get the brunt of that. But the reality is that I'm trying to be there for them so they know, like you said, they've only got one shot with me as their dad, and I want to be able to support them as much as I can.
Yeah, and I think about this principles. What we want kids to have great families, but sometimes we aren't willing to do that with our own families.
Yeah.
And when I think about staying strong during the storms, that storm that you're taking on as a principal, these are without a doubt, Jethro, I think the most tiring times as a principal. Mm-hmm. And pulling away and powering down, right? Like at the dinner table, no phones, powering down, taking some time to let people know that you protect this time, right? Whether it's putting your phone in airplane mode or do not disturb, really, really important. And take that time to power down. You deserve it. You need it to get energized back.
Yeah. So powering down is a really important concept. You talked a little bit, I want to go back to this because we just brushed over it. And the idea of people doxing principals or threatening principals can be super scary for sure. And it's something that has gone on all the time, and it seems like it's increased because of all the COVID stuff, because of the decisions that people have had to make, or the decisions that principals haven't even been allowed to make, where the district said, this is what we're doing, and there's no argument. That has happened also, where we're listening to people who are not educators make decisions about education, and being expected as non-medical professionals to make decisions about medical things is really putting everybody in a bad position. And it's difficult because we honestly don't know what the right answer is. Things have been changing, things have been in flux, and it's been difficult for everybody to understand what's really going on. In these types of situations where there's so much information out there, how do you keep your families focused on what really matters and help them not, get torn off in these other directions that are not healthy or helpful?
Yeah, I think it's the focus on the goal, right? And the goal for us is to keep all of our kids in school 180 days and to not get caught in the drama and the politics of masking or not masking, but really to remind parents of why are we doing what we're doing. It's to keep kids in school 180 days a year, to have every single sporting event, every single concert, every single play. And when you talk that way, I think you get buy-in from parents. And, it can be challenging. I mean, I think right now what we're seeing is that, principals are middle management and the decisions typically are made above us in many of these things, but we're blamed for the decisions one way or the other. And it's really polarizing in our country right now. And I think as principals, getting doxxed and getting something out there on social media about you. I'll give this example. Right now, the state of Pennsylvania is having more child abuse claims against principals because they make kids wear masks than ever before, right? Wow. It's clogging up the system, actually, for kids that are actually abused. And this is what we're dealing with as principals. And here's what I would encourage you as the principal. Number one is to stay strong. You are going to get through this. You are going to survive this storm. And number two, I'd say connect with your state and national principals association. Right away, when that parent posted that to me, I reached out. I got some advice, got some help from our national principals association. I have found that to be really, really encouraging, knowing we're not alone in this journey. And number three, that's the other thing. I think it's important to tell your story and help inspire other principals. And let's all stick together because we're a big network of very awesome individuals that are doing great things for kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to take a minute, just talk about telling your story. It's great to tell your story, but it's even better when someone else tells your story for you, who's a credible third party, not some parent who's, trying to dox you or report you for child abuse, but a newspaper or a journalist or someone else who's telling a great story about you. And I just want to put a plug in that I'm teaching people how to do this at Press, as in get positive press for your school, press.transformativeprincipal.com. Short videos, 3 minutes long, telling you exactly how I got in the newspaper 15 times over 2 years. Because that kind of stuff, when the bad stories happen, because they will, when the storms come, because they will, it's really good to have other things that, one, help bury that, and two, show that this is an anomaly and not who we really are. So people can check that out at press.transformativeprincipal.com.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I think you're so right. It's about telling your story, but it's also about telling the story of your kids in your school, right? And the great work that your faculty and staff are doing. And let's all remember that number one, this storm will pass. Number two, we will get through this together. Like as a principal, you're going to get through this and you're going to be stronger. And, this is temporary. And what you do for kids is long lasting. So continue to do the great work, moving our kids forward and loving on kids and being there to support them and help them find success.
Yeah, very good. So, Bill, my final question is, what is one thing that a principal can do this week? We've talked about a lot to be a transformative principal like you.
Yeah, I think the first thing and the number one thing I think is take some time this week to fill up your tank. What do you do that you love? Is it going for a run? Is it listening to music? Is it going fishing? Is it playing sports? Whatever that is, take time away from the job, from the principalship to refuel you. And I'm telling you, you're going to feel energized and get into a pattern of doing that multiple times a week. Stay committed to it, find what you love, and keep doing it.
Very good. So people can follow you at Dr. Bill Ziegler on Twitter, right?
Yeah, at Dr. Bill Ziegler at chaselearning.org. And you can find my podcast, Lead the Way EDU, with Dr. Bill Ziegler, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yep, and I got a link to that in the show notes at transformativeprincipal.org. So just want to thank everybody for listening today. Thank you for being here. Make sure you go follow Bill, and he's always got great stuff so you can learn from him at any time. And thanks for listening to Transformative Principal.